The survivors, scattered across what was once known as the Earth, began to regroup. The cities, now reduced to rubble, were not the same. Buildings once tall and proud were now nothing more than broken skeletons of glass and concrete. The world's once bustling streets were empty, save for the few souls brave enough to venture out. The air was thick with dust, the remnants of the destruction that had befallen them. But amid the devastation, there was hope. Small pockets of survivors formed in the shadows of the ruined cities. They were not trained soldiers or warriors. They were civilians, doctors, farmers, teachers, and engineers. But they all shared one thing in common: the will to survive. They knew the aliens would return one day, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The first few weeks after the aliens left were the hardest. The world had been left without leadership, without direction. Governments had crumbled, and the world was in chaos. But as time went on, people began to rebuild, not just the structures around them, but themselves. They started to organize. They knew they needed to make sense of their shattered world. They needed to learn from the past, to understand what had happened, and how to make sure it never happened again. A group of survivors in what used to be the United States took the first step toward rebuilding. They formed a small council, not a government, but a group dedicated to gathering resources, organizing defense, and finding others. This council worked tirelessly, scavenging the broken cities for food, water, and any remnants of technology left behind by the aliens. They knew the world would never be the same. They would never have the power, technology, or wealth they once had. But they had something far more powerful: each other. They were resilient, and they were determined. They wouldn't just rebuild their homes, they would rebuild their future. Word spread fast among the survivors. Humanity had a chance to survive. And with that message, more groups formed. They were scattered, but they were not alone. In cities, small towns, and isolated bunkers, people found each other. They shared stories of what had happened, of how the aliens had come and gone, and how humanity had been left to die. But now, they had a new purpose: survival. They had learned to adapt. They had learned to fight. In one hidden enclave, a small group of engineers began working on something powerful. They knew the alien technology was still out there somewhere. They had seen it up close during the invasion: alien ships, weapons, and technology that could change the world. The survivors, desperate for anything that could give them an edge, began to reverse engineer whatever they could find. At first it was small things: salvaged alien communication devices, scanners, and drones. But as the weeks turned into months, they made progress. They developed weapons from the alien tech, and for the first time since the invasion, they had a fighting chance. They had weapons that could challenge the aliens if they ever returned, and they would. But while the survivors prepared, there were still doubts. Some wondered if they were ready for the inevitable. The aliens had left behind their technology, but they had also left something far more dangerous: their knowledge of humanity's weaknesses. The aliens were calculating, intelligent, and ruthless. They had learned about Earth's people during their invasion, and they knew how to crush them. But what the aliens hadn't accounted for was humanity's resilience. Even after all they had been through, even after everything that had been taken from them, they still fought. The survivors knew they could never forget the past, but they couldn't live in it either. The time had come to take action. In the distance, the first signs of a new movement were forming. Some survivors, now united in purpose, began to plan their next steps. They weren't going to wait for the aliens to return. They were going to show them that they were no longer the prey. They would hunt the hunters. The survivors had been left for dead, but now they were ready to make the invaders regret their mistake. They would not just survive. They would thrive. They would take back what was rightfully theirs, and they would ensure the aliens would never think of humanity as weak again. The time for rebuilding was over. The time for revenge had begun. The survivors, with their new technology and new resolve, would rise from the ashes of their former lives. and they would make the aliens realize that they had made a grave error in underestimating the strength of humanity. In the years to come, the invaders would learn that humanity was not something to be toyed with. They had thought they could leave Earth to die, but they had only made the humans stronger. Now, it was humanity's turn to take the fight to them. And so, the survivors began their journey, not just to survive, but to reclaim their world. They would hunt the invaders down, one by one, and they would make them regret the day they ever set foot on Earth. The human race would rise from the ashes, and they would not be stopped. The aliens had made their mistake. Now, humanity was ready to make them pay. Humanity's resolve was unshakable. Despite the years of suffering, despite the scars left behind by the invasion, the survivors were becoming something more than just a scattered group of people. They were uniting, forging a new strength from the very pain that had been inflicted on them. They were no longer just survivors. They were becoming warriors. Across the globe, secret communities were rising, hidden beneath the remnants of ruined cities or deep in the wilderness where no alien eyes could see them. The time for hiding was over. Humanity was ready to strike back. But the work wasn't easy. Every day was a challenge. Every day, the survivors faced new threats. The alien technology that had been left behind had its dangers, and not all of it was understood. There were still pockets of alien forces scattered across Earth, remnants of the invasion force that had failed to finish the job. But the survivors had something the aliens didn't: creativity. They took the alien technology and adapted it. Engineers worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the weapons, turning them into tools of humanity's defense. They learned how to use the alien ships to their advantage, turning the once feared invaders' machines into weapons against them. Every broken piece of tech was examined, every alien weapon studied, and every success brought humanity closer to their goal: taking back the Earth and making the aliens regret the day they ever set foot on the planet. In one of the largest survivor enclaves, a group of military tacticians had begun to form a battle strategy. They knew the first move was crucial. The aliens would be on their guard now, expecting some kind of retaliation. So the humans needed to be smart. They would launch smaller attacks at first, quick raids on alien supply caches, hitting them where it hurt the most. And while the raids were being carried out, they would continue to rebuild. It wasn't just the humans' physical strength that was growing. Their unity was their greatest weapon. They began to operate like a well-oiled machine, with civilians, engineers, fighters, and strategists all working together, each contributing their part to the larger goal. But it wasn't just about fighting. Humanity's resilience had always been more than just physical strength. It was the spirit, the refusal to be broken by anything. Even in the darkest times, they found ways to survive. This was the mentality that had kept them alive when all seemed lost. Now they needed that spirit more than ever. In one small enclave, a group of former diplomats had been working on something that would change the course of the war. A message. It was a message to the aliens, a declaration that humanity was no longer a species to be toyed with. They would not beg for mercy. They would not submit, and they would never again be the prey. The diplomats worked tirelessly, crafting a message that was both defiant and clear. It was a statement of humanity's strength and determination, a warning to the invaders. Once the message was ready, the survivors made a bold decision. They would send it out into space, broadcasting it on every frequency they could. It wasn't just a message for the aliens. It was a message for all to hear. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were standing tall, ready to take back what had been stolen from them. And so, the storm began to gather. The first steps were taken. Small raids, small victories. But it was enough. It was enough to send a signal to the alien forces that the tide was changing. Humanity was no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The aliens had underestimated them before. They thought they could break humanity, leave them to die. But now the humans had proven them wrong. Each success, no matter how small, proved that humanity was unstoppable. Across the world, The survivors had one goal in mind: payback. They would make the invaders pay for the lives lost, for the cities destroyed, and for the pain inflicted. They were not going to sit idly by and wait for their fate. They were going to take control, take the fight to the enemy, and show them that humanity was not something to be forgotten or overlooked. The survivors had spent years recovering from the devastation, but now they were ready. They had learned the lessons of their past, they had honed their skills, and they had the power of unity behind them. The storm was coming, and nothing would stop it. The aliens had made a grave mistake, and humanity would make sure they never forgot it. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the humans would make it clear that they were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future, for their homes, and for their right to be free. The storm was no longer just a gathering force. It was ready to strike, and humanity would lead the charge. The wind howled through the wreckage of what had once been a bustling city. The streets were empty now, save for the survivors who had learned to move swiftly through the ruins, their steps cautious and deliberate. The world was no longer what it had been. Everything had changed since the alien invasion. What was once a symbol of humanity's greatness was now a battleground for survival. In the heart of one of the largest survivor strongholds, leaders from every enclave had gathered to discuss the first major strike against the alien forces. It had taken weeks of preparation, and the tension was palpable. The battle would not be easy, but the survivors knew it had to be done. They had to make the first move, send a clear message that humanity was not just a helpless species to be wiped out. They were not weak. They were not prey. As dawn broke over the horizon, the command center buzzed with activity. Engineers and military leaders worked together in sync, fine-tuning the alien technology they had adapted. The air was filled with the sharp sound of communication devices crackling and the rhythmic tapping of keyboards. Everyone had their roles to play. The time for planning was over. Now it was time for action. General Sarah Owens stood at the front of the room, looking out over the gathering. She was a woman who had seen too much pain and loss to ever back down. But now, her eyes burned with a fierce resolve. "This is our moment," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "We strike now, while they still think we're weak. We hit them hard, and we show them that humanity is not done." Her words were met with a chorus of nods and murmurs of agreement. Every person in the room knew the gravity of what they were about to do. It wasn't just about reclaiming the Earth. It was about sending a message to the aliens that the survivors had not only survived, but had adapted, evolved, and were now stronger than ever before. In the control room, an officer watched the map as it lit up with signals from the different attack teams. They were ready. The plan was set. The target was clear. The first strike would be at an alien supply depot that had been discovered in the outskirts of a former human city. The alien forces had been using the depot to store weapons, fuel, and other vital supplies. If they could destroy it, it would deal a significant blow to the invaders' efforts. But it wasn't just about the depot. It was about showing the aliens that humanity could and would fight back, no matter the cost. General Owens knew that if this strike was successful, it would inspire the survivors to do more, to rise up, to fight harder. It would give humanity a glimmer of hope that had long been extinguished. The attack would be swift and decisive. The strike team, made up of the best from across the survivors' enclaves, was ready. They had spent weeks preparing, learning to move through the terrain without being detected. They had trained on using the alien weapons, mastering their controls, and understanding the technology that once seemed so alien to them. Now, it was their weapon. The group was small, but they moved like shadows, silent and quick as they approached the target. They were using stolen alien ships, barely modified but enough to carry out the mission. The journey was fraught with risks. They had to navigate through dangerous territory, evade alien patrols, and ensure that no one knew they were coming. But if they were successful, it would be a monumental victory. As they neared the supply depot, the team could see the flickering lights of the alien structures ahead. The depot was surrounded by a few alien patrol ships, but their movements were predictable. The humans knew how the aliens operated now. They had learned their patterns, their weaknesses. General Owens gave the signal. Without hesitation, the strike team moved into position, their hands steady on the alien weapons they had grown to trust. The quiet hum of their ships was the only sound as they took aim. It was almost too easy. The aliens had underestimated them. They had assumed that the humans were too weak to fight back, too scattered to mount any real resistance. But the humans had learned, and now they were ready. With one swift motion, the strike team launched their first volley. Explosions lit up the sky as the depot's defenses were obliterated in seconds. The alien patrols scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The humans had already planned their escape, already prepared for the counterattack. They hit fast, hard, and then disappeared into the night, leaving only destruction in their wake. As the team made their way back to the stronghold, the adrenaline was still rushing through their veins. They had done it. They had taken the first step toward reclaiming Earth. They had shown the aliens that humanity was not helpless. They had shown them that humans were not the prey. They were the hunters. Back in the command center, the survivors erupted in cheers. The first strike had been a success. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of the war, but it was a victory nonetheless, and it sent a message. Humanity was not done. Humanity would fight back, no matter the odds. The aliens had left humanity to die, but now the survivors were making them pay. And this was just the beginning. The storm was gathering, and the aliens would soon realize that their biggest mistake had been underestimating the resilience of humanity. The war had begun, and humanity was ready. The news of the successful strike spread like wildfire among the survivors. It wasn't just a victory, it was proof. Proof that the humans could fight back, that they could stand their ground against the seemingly invincible alien forces. After the first attack, morale soared, and whispers of hope rippled through the remaining enclaves. But amidst the celebration, there was no time for rest. The aliens had certainly noticed the destruction of their supply depot. They wouldn't just let it slide. Humanity had poked the hornet's nest, and now the hornets were angry. The counterattack was inevitable. General Sarah Owens paced back and forth in the command center, a stern expression on her face. She had known that retaliation would come, and she had already begun preparing for it. The alien forces were not just technologically advanced. They were relentless. They would fight back with everything they had. But Sarah had a plan, one that would put humanity's survival on the line. The aliens won't take this lightly, Sarah said, addressing the gathered leaders. We've sent a message, and now they'll send one of their own. We need to be ready. Her words hung heavy in the air. No one doubted the aliens would strike back. It wasn't a question of if, but when. And when the aliens came, they would come with full force. Sarah knew that they couldn't afford to let their guard down, not even for a moment. The survivors had spent years hiding, gathering their strength, and learning to survive. But now, they were on the offensive. And while the first strike had been a success, the war was just beginning. The next move would be critical. If they were too reckless, too eager, they could pay a steep price. If they didn't act quickly enough, they could lose everything. Meanwhile, on the alien side, the leaders of the invasion were in turmoil. The destruction of their supply depot was a massive blow. The humans had done something they hadn't expected. They had struck back, and they had done it efficiently. The invaders were used to seeing worlds fall under their control without resistance. But this was something new. The alien commanders convened in their high-tech war room. They were used to planets cowering beneath their rule, to civilizations bending to their will. But the humans, they were different. The species they had considered weak and insignificant had defied them. And now, they had to plan for the retaliation. They have crossed the line, one of the alien leaders growled, his voice low and threatening. We will make them regret this. This planet will be ours, one way or another. The aliens' retaliation was swift. They launched an all-out assault on multiple human enclaves, attacking with overwhelming force. Their ships arrived like shadows in the night, their weapons devastating everything in their path. They targeted key human strongholds, trying to crush the resistance before it could spread. The survivors had expected this. General Owens had anticipated that the aliens would retaliate with everything they had, and she had prepared her people for it. They were not only fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for a chance at a future, for their homes, their families, and their planet. The battle was fierce. The aliens brought their full might to bear, attacking with precision and power. But the humans weren't so easily defeated. They fought back with every tool at their disposal: stolen alien technology, guerrilla tactics, and the fierce will to survive. Sarah stood in the middle of the chaos, overseeing the defense from the command center. Her voice was calm but firm as she issued orders. Hold your ground. Push them back. Every inch matters. Her words were echoed by her fellow commanders, and the survivors took up arms, fighting for their homes. The battle was unlike anything they had faced before, but there was something else in the air, something different. For the first time in years, the humans were on the offensive. The fear that had once gripped them had been replaced by resolve. They weren't just defending anymore. They were fighting back, and that made all the difference. As the battle raged on, the survivors fought like they had nothing left to lose. They were no longer the prey. They were the hunters. Each strike against the alien forces was a testament to their strength, to the resilience of humanity. But the aliens were relentless. Their ships blazed across the sky, and their ground forces marched forward, crushing anything in their path. The humans fought bravely, but the sheer force of the alien attack was overwhelming. Sarah knew they couldn't hold on much longer unless reinforcements arrived. They needed help, and they needed it fast. In the midst of the battle, Sarah made a decision that could change the course of the war. She activated a secret communication device, one that had been dormant for years. It was a last resort, a desperate call for help from the only ally humanity had left, the remnants of other civilizations that had survived the alien invasion. It was a gamble. The humans had no idea if any other species would respond, if anyone was even out there. But it was their only hope. Sarah's message was simple: we need your help. The galaxy needs to stand together. As the transmission sent into the void, Sarah looked out over the battlefield. The aliens were closing in, but she had no intention of giving up. Not yet. The humans had fought for far too long to be wiped out now. The aliens may have thought they could destroy humanity, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Humanity was not done, and the counterattack had only just begun. The battlefield was a grim sight. Bodies, both human and alien, littered the ground, remnants of a war that was rapidly escalating. The once thriving cities were now rubble, buildings shattered by the brutal alien bombardment. The survivors, battered but unbroken, fought desperately to hold their ground. The humans had struck first, but now they were struggling to keep the invaders from claiming their planet. General Sarah Owens stood in the command center, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the war zone. The lights were dim, and the air was thick with tension. The enemy was relentless, pushing forward with an intensity that left little room for error. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and overwhelmed, but they weren't backing down. "Where are the reinforcements?" Sarah muttered, gripping the edge of the table. It had been days since she sent the distress signal, but so far, no help had arrived. She had to believe that someone was out there, that someone would come to their aid. They couldn't win this war alone. On the front lines, the humans fought with a raw, untamed fury. They had nothing left to lose. The aliens thought they could crush humanity, but they had underestimated one crucial thing: the strength of the human spirit. With every shot fired and every alien ship brought down, the humans proved that they were not simply prey to be hunted. They were warriors willing to fight to the bitter end. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah's communicator beeped. It was a message, a signal from deep space. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw the source. It was a response to the distress signal. Someone had heard them. General Owens. The voice crackled through the static. This is Captain Tarek of the Iroquoian fleet. We've received your call. We're coming. Hold on. Sarah's pulse quickened. The Iroquoian fleet. It was a name she hadn't heard in years, not since the early days of the invasion. The Iroquoian were a race of formidable warriors who had once been allies of humanity. They had vanished long ago, believed to have been wiped out by the same alien forces now attacking Earth. But now, they were returning to help. The reinforcements were finally coming. Thank God, Sarah whispered under her breath. She immediately sent word to the front lines, urging her troops to hold their ground a little longer. The cavalry was on its way, and they needed to be ready for the final push. Meanwhile, on the alien side, the invaders were growing more frustrated. They had expected a swift victory, but humanity's resistance was proving more resilient than they had anticipated. They had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt, to fight back in the face of impossible odds. Now they were facing a war they hadn't planned for, a war that was quickly spiraling out of their control. The alien command center was filled with anxious murmurs. The invaders had never encountered a species quite like humanity. They had expected them to crumble under the pressure, but the humans were proving to be a thorn in their side. Their soldiers were dying, their ships were falling from the sky, and their control over Earth was slipping through their fingers. What are we waiting for? One of the alien commanders growled, his voice sharp. Send in the full force. We will not lose to these insects. But just as the command was about to be given, the mood in the command room shifted. A new signal appeared on the aliens' radar, one that made the commanders freeze in their tracks. The Iroquoian fleet had arrived. It was a sight the aliens had never expected to see. A massive fleet of ships, sleek and battle-hardened, emerged from hyperspace. The Iroquoian ships had advanced technology far beyond the invaders' own, and they came with a single purpose: to help humanity reclaim their planet. The battle that ensued was unlike any the aliens had ever experienced. The Iroquoian ships, with their superior firepower and precision, tore through the alien forces. The skies above Earth lit up with explosions as the two fleets collided, a show of raw power and devastation. The humans, now emboldened by the arrival of their allies, fought with renewed vigor. They pushed the aliens back, taking down ships, soldiers, and fortifications alike. Sarah watched in awe as the Iroquoian ships decimated the alien fleet, their weapons cutting through the invaders' defenses like a hot knife through butter. The tide of the battle was turning. For the first time in what felt like forever, the humans were no longer the underdogs. They had the upper hand. Get ready, Sarah shouted to her troops. We're not just surviving anymore. We're taking back our planet. With the Iroquoian fleet backing them up, humanity surged forward. The enemy, now in retreat, tried to regroup, but it was too late. The humans had found their strength, and they were no longer fighting alone. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated the power of unity. The battle raged on, but the aliens were losing. The humans had their planet back, and they would not let go without a fight. Sarah stood tall, watching as the invaders were pushed farther and farther from Earth's surface. Her people had risen from the ashes, and they were determined to reclaim everything they had lost. As the final alien ship was brought down, Sarah allowed herself a moment of relief. It wasn't over yet. There were still skirmishes to be fought, still battles to be won. But they had made it this far. Humanity had survived. And with the Iroquoian fleet by their side, they were no longer the prey. They were the hunters. As the last of the alien ships exploded in a fiery blaze across the horizon, Sarah Owens stood on the edge of the command center's platform, overlooking the now silent battlefield. The once relentless sounds of combat were replaced with the soft hum of victory. The sky was beginning to clear, a stark contrast to the chaos that had ravaged the world only days before. Humanity had done it. With the Iroquoian fleet's timely arrival and their own unyielding determination, they had pushed the alien invaders back. Earth, their home, was no longer under siege. But Sarah knew the victory wasn't complete. There would be no real peace until the remnants of the alien forces were completely wiped out, until every last threat to their world was erased. The battle had been long, and humanity had paid a high price. Entire cities lay in ruins. Countless lives had been lost in the struggle for survival. But the survivors were stronger for it. They had learned the true meaning of resilience, of unity. They had learned that no matter how dark the future seemed, they could rise above it. Behind Sarah, the Iroquoian ambassador, Tarek, stepped forward. He was tall, his alien features a striking blend of strength and wisdom, his dark eyes reflecting both the weariness of battle and the satisfaction of victory. "General Owens," he began, his voice deep and calm. "Earth is free once more. The invaders are retreating." Sarah turned to him, offering a weary but thankful smile. "It's not just Earth that's free, it's humanity. We're no longer on the defensive. This is our victory, our strength." Tarek nodded. "Indeed, you have proven that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. I'm proud to have stood beside you in battle." The two exchanged a moment of silent respect, understanding the weight of the words they had just shared. The Iroquoian fleet had come in the nick of time, but it had been the human spirit, their courage, and their resolve that had turned the tide. It had been humanity's willingness to fight for their survival, to push forward even when the odds were stacked against them, that had led them to victory. But Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens, though retreating, were not yet fully defeated. Their forces were scattered across the galaxy, and some would undoubtedly regroup, seeking revenge. The war might have ended for now, but there was still much work to be done to ensure that Earth would never again fall to invaders. She glanced over at her troops, watching them gather in groups, exchanging stories of their battles, offering one another comfort and support. Despite the devastation, there was a palpable sense of pride in the air. They had endured, they had fought, and now they were standing tall once again. "We'll rebuild," Sarah said quietly to Tarek. "And next time, if they come back, we'll be ready. We've learned our lesson." Tarek studied her for a moment, a flicker of something like approval crossing his alien face. "I have no doubt, General Owens, humanity has shown that you are not just survivors. You are conquerors." Sarah looked back toward the horizon, the sun beginning to set over the remnants of the battlefield. A new era was beginning. Earth would be rebuilt, stronger and more united than ever before. Humanity had proven their worth, not just to themselves but to the universe. They were no longer a weak species to be overlooked or underestimated. They were a force, one that would never again be so easily defeated. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Sarah knew one thing for certain. This victory was theirs, and no one could take it away. It was time for humanity to take their place among the stars, to explore, to expand, and to make sure that no one ever thought of them as prey again. The war was over, but the story of humanity's triumph had just begun.